Wake up, Link. You have been asleep for the past 100 years. Try to remember. Wake up, Link.
Did Link die? Well, Breath of the Wild is still very much a mystery. There is a possible explanation that may clarify Link's awakening. However, before we get to that, we will have to discuss the time before Link came to. More than a little while ago, a new trailer of the latest Zelda known as Breath of the Wild was made public. In it, we find glimpses of cutscenes that may have occurred prior to Link's resurrection. Now, before we really theorize about new concepts, let's begin talking about Breath of the Wild in the simplest way possible, chronologically. For this end, let's make a singular timeline for our purposes. This timeline of ours has 3 sections, the first being the period prior to the 100-year time skip, the second being the actual century-long era, and lastly the events that occur after the time skip when Link comes to. To start off with the first section of our timeline, let's analyze the environment. We know that the Kingdom of Hyrule is definitely present as a governing body. We can determine this for several reasons, one being the description of Link's champion's tunic, which reads that only those close to the royal family can wear it, which implies that the royal family is around and, in extension, the actual kingdom. Link's personal relationship with the royal family is also shown in the recent trailers, where he is bowing down to an authority figure of some kind, presumably a member of the royal family. Speaking of which, how does Zelda fit into this equation? Well, this is where it gets a bit complicated. A further analysis of Hyrule reveals unique structures within the kingdom. To this end, let's discuss the Temple of Time. The ruins surrounding the temple appear reminiscent to the castle town found in Ocarina of Time. Moreover, Nintendo has tweeted a trailer of the Temple of Time with a description, "Does this look familiar to you?" which gives a suggestion that they want viewers to see that this is indeed the same temple from the same game. Now, we come to a very interesting contrast. In the recent Game Awards trailer, we see an entirely different castle town, this one being reminiscent to the Twilight Princess variant. In fact, there are so many similarities that you can fairly point out that they may be one and the same. In other words, we are seeing not one, but 2 Hyrule castles. Now, this is extremely interesting, being the fact that we haven't seen a setup like this in most other Zelda games. So, why are there 2 Hyrule castles? And were they both around at the same time? Well, that is a tricky question to answer, but we can make a few inferences. In the Game Awards trailer, we see an explosion of some kind coming inside from what I'm calling the Twilight Castle. The said explosion appears to be coming from inside the structure. Some have attributed this to be Calamity, who appears to be trapped in the same area. But how was he trapped exactly? Evidence points to the Sheikah. Surrounding the Twilight Castle, we see pillars bearing Sheikah-like symbols. Presumably, this barrier is used to contain Calamity Ganon. However, there is still one big factor to consider, the bird race of people. Now, many have speculated whether or not these beings are descended from the Lofwings or they are somehow related to the Oka. While this may or may not be the case, let's first analyze the race as a single group. These beings appear to be quite dexterous. Not only do they have the ability to fly, but they also possess hand-eye coordination, as exemplified by Cass being able to play the accordion. Additionally, we see one Falco-looking bird carry a bow, which implies he can use the thing and he probably prefers the edge too. Moreover, the same race of Birdmen appear to be able to utilize advanced technology. This is shown by the giant bird-like airship from the recent trailer. So, now that we have discussed the Birdmen in terms of capabilities, let's talk about them in terms of their relationship towards the rest of Hyrule. They appear to be rather friendly, as the Falco-looking bird was willing to fly Link to the airship. In addition, if these Birdmen are indeed the descendants of Lofwings, we can determine a crucial aspect about their significance. In Hyrule Historia, the goddess Hylia gave Lofwings to humanity to act as their guardian birds. If this relationship persists within Breath of the Wild, this would mean that these Birdmen would be rather close to the royal family, which would make sense. Remember the description of Link's champion shirt, which states that only those close to the royal family can wear the shirt, with Link being more or less a close confidant of the royal family. Link's own relationship with the Birdmen in extension can also affirm their own connection with the royal family. So now we come to another interesting contrast. If these Birdmen are indeed the guardians of humanity as instructed by Hylia, now where does that leave the Sheikah? Well, firstly, their duties appear to be separate. The Sheikah were instructed to be the guardians of the goddess Hylia, and in extension Zelda, meaning that they probably do not serve anyone else outside of the royal family. While on the other hand, these Birdmen may likely be the guardians of humanity in general, assuming of course that they are descended from the Loftwings. So do the Birdmen and the Sheikah have a conflict of interest then? Well, that may or may not be the case, but there is one snippet I want to discuss briefly. So how does Calamity Ganon fit into this situation? Call it a hunch, but I don't believe he's the only antagonist in Breath of the Wild. The reason for that is this. In the same Game Awards trailer, we see Link wielding the Master Sword. Additionally, we can also deduce that he's already an experienced warrior, as he already claimed the Master Sword, in addition to wearing the champion shirt. In this situation, a battle-hardened Link with the Master Sword should have been able to defeat Ganon, as we have seen time and time again. However, he was not able to do so this time, as he presumably died, and the Master Sword became damaged. So what happened? Why wasn't Link able to defeat Ganon? Past Links, after all, were not only able to defeat Ganon, but also Ganondorf when utilizing the Triforce of Power. Obviously, the situation with Calamity Ganon must have been vastly different from other Ganon encounters. To investigate this further, let's look at the Master Sword. The sword is damaged, which is very unusual. If we look at the blade in a structural view, we can see that it was forged by the goddess Hylia herself, along with being tempered by the essence of the other goddesses, meaning that the blade is not a normal one. Moreover, its damages can actually tell us a few things. According to Skyward Sword, when the Master Sword was imbued with Din's fire, it literally stated that the blade has a divine power to repel evil, meaning that malevolent forces should not be able to affect it. With that in mind, I am not sure that Ganon could have damaged the sword, as the blade is anathema to him. Heck, the same sword was used to defeat Demise, for crying out loud. In summary, I do not think Calamity Ganon damaged the sword, so that brings an even greater question. If Ganon did not damage the sword, then who did? Well, I do not have a direct answer to that. No one does except for the ninjas over at Nintendo. However, there is one possible explanation, that the goddess Hylia herself damaged the Master Sword. If the Master Sword was made by the goddesses themselves, then it stands to reason that they can also take it apart or even damage it. With that in mind, with everything we have discussed so far, how do we fit the pieces together? Well, the answer may lay in a piece of footage. In the recent Game Awards trailer, we possibly see two different individuals, one female holding the Sheikah slate and the other who Link is bowing down to. Notice that both of these individuals are wearing different outfits. Additionally, we don't really see their faces, meaning that there is a possibility that they are two different individuals entirely. However, I do see it likely that the person holding the Sheikah slate is indeed Zelda. The reason behind it is this. As stated before, the Sheikah are the guardians of Hylia and her incarnation Zelda, meaning the Sheikah must have been close to Zelda, which would explain why Zelda is holding a piece of their technology. Additionally, we have to point out a critical snippet here. If the Sheikah are the guardians of Zelda, and Zelda has the Sheikah slate, does that mean the slate originally belonged to her? Hold on to that thought, we'll come back to it in a moment. Now, where does that leave the second possible individual who Link is bowing down to? In the recent trailer, this person clenched her fist, almost in a disapproval-like manner. Now, remember how I explained that there are two Hyrule Castles? However, one is completely destroyed while the other, while damaged, is still relatively intact? Well, what if there is a possibility that there may be not one, but two Princess Zeldas at the same time? I know this may sound a bit radical again, but it could make sense in Breath of the Wild's plot. Don't you find it a bit strange that the Guardians, the armed tank of the Sheikah, are attacking Link, a close confidant of the royal family? Additionally, why do the Sheikah monks only talk about Hylia, as if Zelda's not even a thing? Remember that the Sheikah served the goddess Hylia, who in the events of Skyward Sword became immortal through the line of Zeldas. So in essence, the Sheikah serve Zelda without question. However, what happens if two Zeldas are born at the same time? Two Zeldas existing at roughly the same time period actually has happened before in the Zelda timeline. It sort of happened in A Link Between Worlds, but in Zelda 1 and 2 such a situation did occur. But if there are two Zeldas existing in two Hyrule Castles, this would mess up the hierarchy of Hyrule. Who serves who? Which Zelda does the Sheikah serve? A situation like this would indeed be confusing. Additionally, this can also explain why the Guardians attack Link. Now, some speculate reasons why the Guardians attack him in the first place. I personally believe it is due to the Sheikah Slate itself, that this object alerts Guardians in proximity. For instance, when fighting Guardians, these same tanks seem to ignore all other life forms except for Link. Moreover, they only activate when Link gets close to them. It is likely they do this solely because of the Sheikah Slate in Link's possession. However, why would they do this? Well, remember how Zelda presumably held the Sheikah Slate before in the past? Earlier in this video, we speculated that the Slate may have originally belonged to her. Bringing that aspect into view, it may be possible that these Guardians may see the Sheikah Slate and may actually confuse Link for Zelda. But a question remains, why would these Sheikah-made Guardians attack a person holding an object that used to belong to Zelda? This is where we place our two Zelda argument, with one Zelda vying for control over the other. In this situation, which Zelda does the Sheikah serve? Which Hyrule Castle should be defended? Which would explain why Link seemingly failed to defeat Ganon even with the Master Sword in hand. As stated before when discussing the very properties of the blade, one can fairly deduce that Ganon may not be able to damage it himself, that someone else may have sabotaged the entire confrontation, a betrayal of some kind orchestrated by the second Zelda. It is possible that due to this event, that Link may have died and Hyrule erupted into chaos. Through it all, however, one of the Zeldas, the one who bears the Sheikah Slate, must have saved Link's body. However, the second Zelda, who I'm calling Zelda 2, the one who initiated the coup against the rest of the royal family, must have targeted Zelda 1, the one wielding the Sheikah Slate, using a faction of Sheikah loyal to her. She may have targeted the other Zelda by using the Sheikah Slate as a marker. This schism in the royal family likely further disintegrated the entire kingdom. However, I do find it likely that despite the schism, the Sheikah likely found it wise to seal Ganon within the Hyrule Castle, regardless of which side they wanted to take. Over time, during the century-long era prior to Link's awakening, Hyrule went into decay through both internal schisms and Ganon's attack. And this is where we hit the final period of the timeline, where Link comes to. However, one question remains. If 100 years have passed, would have Zelda died or become an old woman? The voice of Zelda does appear to be rather young, so either she is in some timeless cocoon, or we're actually speaking to one of her descendants, or she may have reverted back to her Hylia form, which some speculate. That may or may not be the case, but it would make sense given the situation. So, in terms of summarizing everything we have explained in this theory, we begin with the beautiful Hyrule, one that knows the technology of the Sheikah and the guardianship of the Birdmen. In this kingdom, two Hyrule castles stand, one near the Temple of Time, and the other posing to be a metropolis. Two princesses may have been born, or at the very least, separate members of the royal family. Link, now a champion, serves the Hylian clan along with the Sheikah. However, a glooming threat was in the distance, Ganon. Link, confident that with the Master Sword, he will be able to defeat the beast no problem, so he prepared to face off against him. However, one of the princesses, or perhaps another member of the royal family, may have had ulterior motives during this event, and due to an unknown context, sabotaged the confrontation between Link and Ganon, dooming Link to lose and subsequently damage the Master Sword, which ultimately led Hyrule to disarray. In this situation, the Sheikah were confused on who they should follow. The schism or split led to the destruction of one Hyrule Castle and eventually led to the further deterioration of the entire kingdom. Thanks to the Sheikah, however, Calamity Ganon was sealed, but with no link to stop him, it was only a matter of time until he broke free. At which point, one of the princesses managed to place Link's body into the resurrection chamber, along with the Sheikah Slate, to prepare him to fight Ganon once again. What happens between that and to when Link wakes up is unknown. Additionally, what happened to the rest of the royal family is also unknown. Some speculate that the old man is the king of Hyrule. While this may or may not be the case, there is a possibility that he knows the situation if this theory holds up, that is. However, there is still a bunch of questions to consider. How exactly do the Koroks fit into this scenario? What can we infer about the return of the Sheikah? Or what about the timeline placement of Breath of the Wild? Well, that is another theory for another day. But despite the theorizing, I am ecstatic about this new Zelda. The lore, the environment, and the potential plot really appears as though it will be fleshed out to its maximum effect. Breath of the Wild is set to be released in 2017, and I can't wait to see what actually happens during the event of its plot. And I am back! Wow, that took a lot longer than I meant the video to take. Sorry for the extended wait, I did not mean for this video to take so long to upload. But what do you guys think of this theory? Are there actually two Zeldas, or is this theory a bit too radical? Would love to hear your thoughts. Also, new content will be coming in consistently now. Now I have a lot more time on my hands and I want to make a proper return to form. This channel has indeed went through a roller coaster as of late, but I am confident things will not only go smoothly but more efficiently going forward. To confirm on this end, here is a schedule of content that will be up in the coming weeks. Next video up is a proper Nintendo Switch analysis, and I have a few things to say about that. Plus, I have a few surprises in store in the near future. With that being said, I got to get back to work. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Till then, have a great and relaxing rest of the day, and take care.